So we are a dedicated facility for immigration. We house anybody that is currently going through court proceedings or is awaiting removal. They're pretty in depth. It's 232 pages of standards that people have kind of taken and molded into a piece that we as a detention facility, we're in that book almost every day, trying to make sure that we're following those guidelines. And it could be anything from how we handle, let's say, special management unit. So if somebody breaks a rule and they are put into a special management unit, how we have to hold a little in-person court for them, and they can file a grievance. We have that whole process that we'll look at all the evidence, we'll look at the cameras, all of that information, talk to witnesses, and say, did he or did he not knowingly break the rules? And so that's outlined in the standards. There's other things that are outlined in the standards, like mental health care. Somebody wants to request mental health care, we have a certain amount of time that we have to make sure that they're seen by a mental health professional. And so I'm the board president right now for Crosswinds Counseling and Wellness, which is our mental health center that covers our county. And we've been working diligently with Crosswinds to make sure that we're meeting that standard, because it's unlike in any of the other jails that they facilitate, because it's more stringent. I would say it's probably more stringent compared to what other facilities are required to do. So this
who are not contracted with ICE.
Correct. Yes. Some facilities go through that accreditation process, kind of like we were talking earlier, and some of the standards are part of that accreditation process. But this is just a different set of standards to make sure that detainees are being treated appropriately when they're in the walls of this facility. Sure, all the time we're having inspections. So every week I've got a compliance officer that'll come in, and they're making sure that we're staying on top of things. They're interviewing detainees, they're talking with them, making sure that their needs are met. Then twice a year we have a full-blown, what they call an inspection, and it's by the Office of Detention Oversight. And about 10 or 12, I would say, industry professionals, some of them contract, maybe they helped run a facility before, and now they're contracted by the Department of Homeland Security to come in and inspect and review everything. They'll talk to detainees, they'll interview them, they'll go through our policies, they'll go through our logs to make sure we're completing our logs correctly. They'll go through all of our medical stuff, and it is an in-depth 3-day process of just going through all of that. Overall, the Office of Detention Oversight is the one that does the inspections, and typically what I see is half of that group. Remember, it's 10 or 12 individuals that come in. Half of that group is Department of Homeland Security professionals, and the other half is contracted out, and they could be with Nakamoto Group, or they could be with just a private contractor that Homeland Security is hiring to come in and inspect our facility. Our most recent inspection was in March of this year, and in that inspection they found what they would say would be 3 deficiencies, and they were all related to the same category, and it all had to do with the hours that we allowed attorney visits on the weekends. I think our policy said one thing, and then what was posted in the lobby said another thing, and so we had to revamp and retrain staff to make sure that, if an attorney calls, here's our time period that we will say, yes, you can come do an in-person visit with your client. We limit those to, an hour so that you're not in there for 10 hours at a time, as long as no other attorney is trying to get in there. Yeah, we'll lengthen that if we need to. But so that would be an example of our most recent findings. But all three of them, like I said, were related to that. And so I was pretty proud of our staff for what they did for that, because it is a very in-depth process. I would say yes. And the reason that I say that is I know how good we treat people here. And I have to keep going back to that. Like, when you hear from someone that goes to a conference in Texas and they come back saying, man, people hear about your kitchen and how good you feed them and how good you're taking care of them. And then I hear from an immigration judge the same thing. You know that we're doing something right. And so if they're not being housed here, I'd be afraid if they went somewhere else and they weren't given the same level of care that I know that we're willing to give. I recently had somebody in our community that was trying to go through this process, and had an attorney that was trying to help them. And I offered at one point to write a letter of recommendation, because I feel like they want to be a productive member of our community. They want to do things the right way. And if there's anything that I can do to help expedite that process, I'd love to. And that leads me into, I would just love to see more of a streamlined process to that. As long as we're doing our due diligence on background checks and those types of things to make sure that we know who's coming in and who we're allowing to become a U.S. citizen. I just would like to see an increased effort in that, the same as there's the increased effort in the removals. And I think that's a personal belief, because we are a country of immigrants going way back, right? And, I think that people are just looking for a better life. And as long as they're not here to commit crime and they want to do it the right way, they want to come in legally the correct way, I think that we should be focusing on trying to make that happen. I think I would like for people to understand that we're doing our best to treat people humanely within the walls of our facility, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure their rights are being met. And so I would say it's hard on staff members when they see what's said about them from an opposing view. They're here to do their job. They're maybe a career detention officer. They may be just doing it for a couple of years. But when they see some of the things that are said about them, they're humans too. And why aren't we trying to treat everybody equally? Why aren't we trying to treat everybody the same? And I think I'd have to stand up for my staff on that, because they're here to do a job, and we've asked them to do it. I put my trust in them to do it.